Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fullest podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Bostwick, and today's guest is Zain Richardson, who's Aero's Chief Marketing and Customer Officer. And if you don't know about Aero yet, I've shared about it a little bit in our previous podcast, but I'm just really excited about having Aero as a service here in Southern California. And I really believe flying should be a magical experience and not just about getting from A to B. So Aero is the next generation of air travel. They're a semi-private airline that operates between private terminals with bespoke semi-private jets of up to 16 guests. They offer unmatched personalized service at every touch point. So definitely be sure to check them out and let's hear directly from Aero's Chief Marketing Officer, Zain. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Nikki. It's great to be on the show. Thank you. Really appreciate you kind of spending some time with me today. So thrilled to share a little bit more about kind of Aero and our story.
I'm so excited. So I'd love to just kind of, learn more about how you started and at Aero and your journey to joining the company.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a hospitality, long-time hospitality person. So outside of industry, so many folks in the aviation industry are sort of lifers, and in the same way at Aero, we're really trying to sort of reimagine how flying should be. The Aero team looked outside of industry to bring on their chief marketing and customer officer. So the last 20 years or so of my career have really been spent in premium and luxury hospitality brands, building truly differentiated guest experiences and also positioning brands really to be unique in their space. So previous to Aero, I was chief marketing officer of a hospitality brand called Aman Hotels and Resorts, which are a portfolio of ultra luxury hotels around the world. Previous to that, I spent time with Starwood and Marriott Hotels, most recently in Europe, where I was leading marketing and brand management for the portfolio of luxury brands, including brands such as St. Regis, the Ritz-Carlton, and W Hotels. And I think why the Aero opportunity sort of felt like the right next step for me personally was I was really engaged in the vision to really reimagine air travel resonated with me as an industry that has not typically had a lot of innovation and not looked to really put the guest or the flyer at the center of everything they do in the way that hospitality businesses need to. And so that's what we're really trying to do at Aero, is put the guest at the center of everything we do, both from an experience standpoint, but also everything across the guest journey from booking through to traveling with us.
Wow, I love that. That's amazing. Actually, my family is in hospitality here in Laguna Beach specifically, and working with some of the brands that you mentioned. So that's really exciting that you came from that, because I completely agree with you. I think a lot of times it does take someone from outside the industry to come in and really change things up. So that's really exciting. And I'm curious how, you mentioned like putting the customer first, the flyer first, and really catering to them and their needs in these different ways. And I'm curious like how you see wellness travel, like how Aero's leaning into the kind of wellness space, because would you say that it's really the audience that you guys are catering to is also into that, or is it just anyone that would want to travel? I mean, like, as a lot of people are always like, ugh, in-flight food, that's never an option really that you want to take, even if you're flying first class. Like I, for my honeymoon, for example, like we flew first class to Europe, which was so exciting for us, but I didn't eat any of the food. I just didn't want it, right? So I kind of want to hear about what your experience is there
Yeah,
and thought process.
for sure. And I think everything about the commercial flying experience is kind of a headache, even if you are, as you said, going first class for a special occasion. I think fundamentally, commercial airlines aren't necessarily built to provide that sort of personalized experience that really is focused around making it an enjoyable experience and sort of reimagining this idea of kind of travel being part of the vacation, for example. So at Aero, we really are trying to sort of bring back that golden age of travel. So people are excited to travel again. And so we're doing that in a few different ways. So as you mentioned, yeah, wellness is super important to our guests. We both in flight and also in our lounges, we are curating food and beverage in partnership with kind of the LA favorite Erewhon food market. They were a like-minded brand that we'd identified as somebody that really kind of understood their consumer group, and also we knew that our guests do shop there and do want to kind of make mindful choices about what they're consuming. So they felt like a natural partner for us to work with. We are we are just launching a new partnership actually with a beauty brand, or skincare brand, I should say, called Dr. Barbara Sturm. What's great about Dr. Barbara Sturm's work is that she comes from a clinical background in anti-inflammatory medicine, and so all of her skincare products really have that basis in science. And for us, they've actually curated a kit so that all guests who fly with Aero will be receiving this Serum Discovery Kit, which will help both rejuvenate and repair their skin in flight. So while we're doing everything we can to make flying the most pleasant and pleasurable experience it can be, flying does obviously dry out the skin, and so we are providing this kit to make our guests feel sort of rejuvenated by the time that they get to the destination. In addition, our guests, anybody who flies with us, will automatically gain access to Dr. Sturm's VIP program, which is called Sturm Privé. So that will unlock kind of special kind of advice around skincare routine recommendations, as well as complimentary consultations with some of their experts. So we're trying to sort of add in different ways that flying can be better, taking kind of the typical concept around flying, which is a really A to B transactional type experience, and making it something, a kind of a moment of wonderment, so that guests really, when they choose to fly Aero, can't believe that they're actually flying.
Wow, I love that. I didn't know about Dr. Barbara Stern's partnership with you guys. That's really exciting. What about, I know you guys do special things like use special light and maybe even sound therapy to help with sleep and motion sickness. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. So we design is one of the core pillars of Aero, and we've kind of looked to some of the great designers of the 20th century to take inspiration. So uh, Charles Eames says the role of a designer is really to be a host and to help guide help guide the user with your product or with your service, and that really kind of resonated with us. So whether it be some of the materials choices in flight, or as you mentioned, kind of the lighting and sound components of the aircraft, it's really to provide a welcome to our guests. So we have specific lighting programs that will be both uplighting from the ceiling or downlighting across our walls, that will have a program that will flow and change through the course of the flight. So at the beginning, we want it to feel as welcoming and warming as possible with the kind of warm lighting, to make sure that our guests, potentially guests who are nervous flyers, for example, feel really at home and immersed in the experience. We've got kind of cooler lighting that comes on, for example, as we start to descend, knowing that our guests, or giving the cue to our guests to start to gather their things to be ready for the onward journey ahead. So we've got what we call it internally at Aero, kind of a light show in the sky. This idea that lighting gives you cues to what part of the journey you're on, but can also trigger different emotional reactions or emotional responses, both calming and also energizing. And then in our choice of materials as well, for example, we've made the experience as immersive as possible, be it the Italian leathers that we use in our seats, or kind of the suede that we use in our sidewalls. Everything is to feel kind of obviously premium, but tactile, and really pleasant to the touch, so it feels unlike any other aircraft that you've been on before.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just mentioned, I personally experienced when my family and I went to Jackson Hole, and I was so incredibly impressed with just the entire experience from when we pulled up, the person who met us at our car, who helped us. I mean, we have two children. I had a newborn with me and my toddler and my husband and I. We had so much stuff in the car, and then we came in to the private terminal, and it was just so easy. And for me, because I'm so particular about the type of food and snacks and things that my family eats, it was really nice to have that area where you guys offered just a lot of healthy beverages, some of our favorite things that was available to us. And that made things so much easier, because then I didn't have to stress as much about whether my kids had, the snacks or whatever they needed. And like just the whole experience, from even just like the type of ticket, right? Like the ticket that we used to onboard, it was just
Yeah.
like very simple. And I just love the entire experience. And like you said, that went into our entire travel experience. It wasn't then about getting to the destination, getting straight to Jackson Hole and then starting our trip. It was actually a big part of our trip that we were so excited about. And on board, was really simple and easy, and I wasn't stressed with the kids, and the flight attendants were so sweet, and even like playing with my son, which was really nice, and catering to him. And so, yeah, the entire experience was just so amazing, and I really appreciate it. And I was excited about the lights and all that, but I'm curious what you see as kind of like the upcoming trends, or like what demands you guys are getting from your customers now.
Yeah, well, firstly, Nikki, I just want to say thank you for the great feedback. We are super user and guest centric at Aero. We like from a design standpoint, from a guest experience standpoint. Obviously, that's my background of wanting to create the best guest experience. So we always want to take feedback and improve that experience. So it's great to have that feedback from you, and I guess that probably somewhat answers your question around what's next. So we survey our guests after every flight. We conduct small focus groups, one-on-one interviews, and probably kind of 30 to 40 a month with our guests around the experience, around how we could do better, around how we can add something new and different to the experience. So we are, like I mentioned, we're just about to launch this new partnership with Dr. Barbara Sturm, but we're also looking at other ways to bring in kind of healthier experiences and options in flight, be that obviously with Erewhon or other sort of smaller brands that we would like to see have that our guests would actually see in their pantries at home. We're also looking to expand sort of the sort of benefit of flying Aero. So as you mentioned, from the moment you sort of stepped to the curb and then were greeted by one of our hosts in LA to the in-flight experience, we also want to extend our experience into our guests' lives beyond that. So you feel sort of thankful to be an Aero guest, even when you're not necessarily flying. So in LA, for example, we do have a partnership with Remedy Place, which will allow our guests to have access to different experiences, both from a food and beverage as well as an experience standpoint. And then in London, we partner with a group called Bodyism, which provides complimentary access for Aero guests to that wellness club in London to help focus in terms of their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So you're going to see more and more of things that we will add to the experience while you're flying, but also things that we can do around the travel experience to make it even more engaging, but also kind of relaxing. Because we hear time and time again that it's just so seamless, it's so convenient, and these are parts of the reasons why guests choose to travel with us. So the more that we can make it as seamless as possible, the more that we believe that our guests will value the experience.
That's so interesting. I love that idea, and people to have access to those spaces. That's so amazing. And is that only while they're traveling with you, or is that kind of just extended beyond that?
But beyond that, Nikki, so
Wow.
we have a service called our Concierge Service, who will help our guests both book their flights, provide seat reservations, etc. Also provide services such as ground transportation, etc. But also with some of our partners, as I just mentioned, via the concierge, you can be signed up to experience Remedy Place or to experience Bodyism. So we're building out our concierge team to go beyond what you might typically expect from a
Yeah.
contact center team in a travel business, but really providing access to to our partners. We partner today with various different hotel brands around the world, from Nobu to Auberge to a few others, and we have obviously exclusive experiences that they offer to our guests that can be booked through our concierge. But we're also looking to expand the the wellness offering that we have via our partnerships, because we know that we are a travel company at heart, so we want to bring in the best of the best to that experience.
That makes sense. Actually, I want to say something about your concierge team. And I forgot to mention this to you guys, but basically, my husband and I, when we were flying back, he lost, I mean, it was so cold, his wedding ring, his wedding band fell off at the airport, at the terminal in Jackson Hole. And we literally, it fell off in the snow and we didn't notice until we got back home. And we like literally, he called your team and they not only went out and found it outside of the terminal, which is amazing because it was like at nighttime and I couldn't believe that it came up like the next day because they hadn't found it when we called them, but they went out searching. And then you guys flew it back for us and we got it back. But it was just this unbelievable experience that we'll never forget. And you guys made it so easy. And we were just so happy because obviously it was something that meant so much to us.
Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. Yeah, no, we do hear there's always unique stories of different
Yeah.
things that happen, and of our different teammates going above and beyond to really help our guests. And I really appreciate you sharing that particular kind of story as something so close to your heart. And we're just so thrilled that you managed to get it back, which is obviously so important.
Yeah, I could not believe it. So, yes, your concierge team is world class. Yeah, so I think those are really incredible partnerships. I'm excited to learn more. Do you think that you guys are going to launch maybe some sort of membership? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, and people ask us very often about, oh, are we going to launch memberships? Because obviously other different business models exist out there where you do have a membership to be able to access flights. Today, we find that being able to have guests to purchase by the seat without a membership is really seamless. So our guests do enjoy that. However, as we're growing, we obviously are adding more and more benefits and unique experiences that our guests can access. So we don't have any plans today, but we are always looking at different ways that we can potentially offer more value to our guests, and potentially that could be in the form of a membership in future. So no plans as yet, but it is something that does pop up both from guests and also other folks that we speak to.
Hey everyone, I want to tell you about a new airline I recently came across called Aero. I was really intrigued because they're a semi-private airline company that flies to places my husband and I either love going to or have on our bucket list, like Aspen, Jackson Hole, Sun Valley, and even places closer to home in Napa and Northern California. However, the fact that a lot of these destinations are in mountain ranges or national parks can sometimes make them difficult to get to and usually involves multiple flights, which makes me hesitant to book with 2 kids. Then I came across Aero and realized this could be the solution I've been waiting for, especially during these unpredictable times with COVID. Like I mentioned, Aero is a semi-private airline that also provides amazing services that honestly for me make it absolutely worth the investment. I love that they use cabin light therapy based on psychology. For example, their custom colored lighting system helps disassociate from motion sickness, and their onboarding warm light and soft music helps calm your nervous system. I also love the fact that you can customize your meals and choose healthy options for you and the whole family. Plus, finally, our dog can come with us as they're pet friendly. Another feature I love about not flying with a major airline are their private terminals. Traveling with a toddler and a newborn already adds so much extra time and forethought getting to and from the airport, and having this expedited check-in system and also just a little more privacy to get the kids ready for the flight is priceless. If you've got an upcoming trip to an outdoors location and are looking for an alternative to the major airlines, you should definitely check out Aero. Be sure to use code THEFULLEST when booking your next flight to get 10% off your trip, which is a big deal. So enjoy and hopefully you check them out. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of companies that have that membership built in and you get a certain number of flights and but even if it's like just you have so many of these benefits that even, if you're a member, maybe it doesn't include like more flying, but yeah, it just would be interesting because then maybe you get access to discounts at all these other places. The experiences, I guess, with like Barbara Stern and all that, what could be, even though your concierge team is already offering that, it's almost like built in where they feel that they can get these different experiences that you spend so much time curating. I mean, it takes a lot of effort doing all this. So I'm really impressed and inspired by what you guys have built in such a short period of time. Are you, I mean, in the US, so are you guys based out of Europe as well, or did it start here?
So we actually started in Europe. Interestingly enough, we
Okay.
started flying. Our first route was flying between Ibiza and Mykonos. So obviously, two amazing premium destinations that global travelers love to fly between. But there's actually no commercial service between those two islands, and so we were the first, and to this day are the only operator that you buy the seat that you can actually travel between Ibiza and Mykonos. And from there, the following summer, we launched out of the UK and we started to fly between London to Nice and Ibiza. And then in early 2021, we launched in the US, flying from Van Nuys in LA to Aspen, and have since added additional destinations, as you mentioned, such as Cabo, as well as Sun Valley. We've recently started to fly out of San Francisco from a private terminal out of SFO to both Cabo and Aspen as well. So we actually started life in Europe. It's a complicated story. It's a classic. When people ask an individual about their family history, it's a classic complicated family history. So we started life flying in Europe, but we are a US company. We're based in San Francisco. Yeah, we came out of a startup studio called Exper, and as a venture from them, but launched first in Europe in 2019. That first summer was the kind of trial summer, just before
Oh,
the pandemic, and just had runaway success that summer, because we were the first only, and only to this day, only operator between those two islands, and then had really built on that success to date. And as you kind of mentioned, lots of our guests are really global travelers. So lots of our guests who are flying between Ibiza and Mykonos in the summer are the same guests who are flying from LA to Aspen in the winter, for example.
okay, that makes sense. I love a complicated story. But it's really not complicated. It makes so much sense. You started there and then you
Totally. Yeah, so we're a US company. We identified demand in Europe, and we tested the business model, and we saw some great feedback. Our guests love the service, and then have expanded since then. And we operate on both continents today. And just to your point around kind of the guests, so this idea, or memberships, I should say, this idea of sort of our guests feeling like they are part of a membership club exists today naturally. So we talk about almost being a social club in the sky, because we see our guests sort of forming business connections, personal connections, learning new things about the destinations that they may have a second home in through other guests that are flying with them. I was flying from LA to Aspen about a month or two ago, and I was sort of listening in and engaging with a couple of individuals. One who is a restaurateur in the LA area, the other is a movie executive, and who were having a very heated debate around NFTs and the value of NFTs. And this was just because they'd met on the Aero flight, and it was super interesting to kind of see that these two individuals kind of coming together, and I saw
yeah.
them swapping numbers at the end of the flight because they wanted to continue and go for dinner together. So we see that a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's so exciting. I love listening to stuff like that. And that's why people want to be part of a membership. So it does make sense. I love that idea of a membership in the sky. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious, is it hard to open up in a new market aside from just, the business model and stuff like that? Do you guys get a lot of pushback from bigger companies? Because I've heard, other companies like coming in. I'm down here in Orange County, and larger airlines giving them a hard time.
Yeah, so we are obviously we're still a startup. We're growing really quickly. We operate smaller aircraft, and we really focus on leisure destinations. So we're staying laser focused to that business model means that we aren't actively or by choice going up against the kind of the bigger airlines. And what we're offering is
Yeah.
really different, really different. So, like as I was saying, the commercial airlines don't fly between Ibiza and Mykonos. We have a lot of guests who have second homes in Aspen, but live in LA or live in San Francisco, and so we operate a service year round. Whereas some of the larger airlines will reduce their service during the summertime, for example. So we're sort of offering something different to a different part of the market, is how I probably would articulate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are these offerings going to expand, continue to expand into other markets, or are you kind of focusing on maybe the LA, San Francisco clients being able to fly to more destinations, or like growing it? Yeah, like are you going to be kind of honing down on LA and San Francisco, or looking to expand more?
A bit of both, actually, Nikki. Like I was saying earlier. So we are listening to our guests all the time, both obviously kind of post flight as well as the focus groups, and as when we do a lot of data analysis to see where the kind of our premium travelers are flying, need us to fly to. So we get honestly, I'll tell you, on a daily basis, we get folks emailing in saying, please start a service between X and Y. We really need you to fly. When will you be flying from X and Y? Which is great to hear. And so we use that sort of data-led approach as well as identifying other kind of future trends for new routes that we will offer. So I would say it's a mixture of the two. So we will continue to offer new destinations out of LA and San Francisco, but I can say that we're also very actively looking at where will be our next, so let's say, origin market in the US. And so you can imagine all, kind of many of the major metropolitan areas that we're taking a look at, that we will look to service from some of our core destinations. It's we evaluate whether really there is the kind of the Aero guest, which we've talked a little bit about in this call, to see where would be the right place for us next. So yeah, we will be expanding both from a destination as well as an origin standpoint.
Okay, that makes sense that it's called like an origin standpoint and then destination.
Yeah.
That's good for me to know. I'm so excited to hear that. Again, there's no airline that really does what you're doing at all, and in the way that you're doing it and what you're offering people. It's really amazing. And I'm really excited to see where you guys go next. So I'm really going to be, following along and looking forward to it. But I'm curious what you're most excited about as you grow with Aero and as you help to shape the new travel industry.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things. So, firstly, every time a new plane arrives that we've designed sort of bespoke from scratch, it's like a new baby arriving. So we've got two that are about to come out of the design works later this summer, which we're super excited about. And each time is a kind of an iteration improvement. So we're excited because that gives us more capacity to operate new destinations to serve more guests. But also, as we talked a little bit about before, really understanding what our guest needs are, and starting to service that even better than we do today. So what really excites me is when I talk to guests. So I spent a good amount of my time actually talking to guests, getting feedback on their experience, and seeing what's going well and what's not going so well. So, and each time when I spend some time with a guest and they tell me, please don't go away from this market. Please don't ever leave. I mean, it's amazing to hear that, that all the work that the team is putting into building both our brand and our service that is so loved and beloved by our guests. To see that continue to grow into new markets is something which really excites me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's true, when people find something that they like, then they rely on it. And then it becomes like scary to think that what if they leave this market and then I have to find another option that's not anywhere near what, your service is offering. And earlier, when I first introduced you and Aero on the call, I said, I was like reading the bio about Aero, and I was saying Aero offers unmatched personalized service at every touch point. And I really mean that. And I meant it because of my own experience, and even little things like when you were just saying that clients say, oh, please, like, don't ever stop servicing this area. You know, my husband and I, when we got off the airplane, when we got to Jackson Hole, it was like icy on the ground. And I was like, we were just walking from the airplane to the terminal with the airline pilot, you know, with your whole team. Like everyone just kind of like helped walk us out. And it's like the little things like that that makes such a big difference. And our experience, the pilot was Persian and I'm Iranian. And so we just kind of felt like we had this experience together that we'll never forget, and we'll continue to like take those stories with us and share that with people, that we would never, you know, do that about our flight experience with anyone, with any other airline. So it really is unmatched what you guys are offering, and something that I'm personally so happy to have found and experienced, and I wanted to share with our audience, because you guys have different audiences. You have the people, like you said, that are executives that are just going from A to B, that in a place that, you know, doesn't necessarily have service, such like yours, that's going to these like remote mountain destinations and whatnot. But then there are families that, you know, it's just so much easier to travel with a company like yours and not have to go through the big headache of what you have to do when you're traveling commercial.
It's a really good point. So we have, but obviously families traveling a lot with us as well. But I think another reason why many guests choose to fly with us is, especially domestically in the US, is because we are obviously pet friendly. So we have many of our flights will have our guests traveling with their beloved kind of dog, usually traveling with them, and make
Yeah.
we identified that from the outset of if folks are traveling between places that they're spending a lot of time versus just a vacation. Again, if it's a second home, it's important for us to set up a service that can facilitate that.
Yeah, it totally, especially when you have maybe a big dog and you can't bring them, and then they have to go in as cargo maybe, and obviously most people wouldn't want to do that. And so I completely agree. I think that that's really important, and that's great that you guys offer that. So you guys are definitely filling a need and a void that's in the market. And so I'm really excited again to have found it. I really appreciate talking to you. I'm so excited that we met, and just knowing your background and where you're coming from and your intention for growing the services that Aero offers, that's really exciting to me, and something that I can't wait to, you know, continue to follow along. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you for flying with us, and also for sharing your experience with your listeners, and for spending some time with me today.